Okay, we're here with Monsignor David Gallivan. He's the pastor of Holy Cross Roman Catholic Church, right here at the corner of Niagara and Maryland. Uh, and it's a congregation of how many congregants here?
Well, we count them by family. We have about 800 family units, whatever a family unit might be. It might be one person, it might be, in some cases, actually 17. I've counted an African immigrant family with 17 kids. But anyway, anybody in between. So we a couple of thousand of people on our registry. Now, how many come to worship here? There's maybe 500 each Sunday. Somebody from each family, maybe 500 or so each Sunday.
So the congregation is made up of how many nationalities, if you would?
Well, let's explain that by saying there's three racial groups or ethnic group. No, I fudge the meaning sometimes, the definition sometimes. Let's just say it this way: we have a lot from the Caribbean, including Puerto Rico mostly, and a smattering of people from the rest of Latin America, and then we have a small but loyal cohort of the original Italian families that founded this parish and this neighborhood. There's a good number of those folks that still come here. Some living in the neighborhood, but most probably living outside, up in North Buffalo or maybe in the near suburbs. That for them, it's not a big trip to just hop in the car and drive 15 or 20 minutes to the church. And then there's the African community. I count about 12 different countries of the African community or communities. You might think that, well, they're all dark complected. They must all be very culturally similar. Well, they're not. It's kind of like lumping Poland and Germany and Ireland and England and Italy all together because they kind of look alike. But they speak different languages, totally different cultures, different histories. And so I was going to say a struggle, but I'd say it's a pleasant struggle to work together with them and try to build some sense of community there. So, and then we lump them all together for certain occasions and activities, certain liturgical celebrations. It would be very difficult to do separate Christmas, separate Holy Week, separate major feasts. So we use elements of the cultures and the traditions and the music, the languages of different ethnic and national groups. So it's not easy. It's like having three smaller communities within one.
Mm-hmm. So the congregation that you pastor at Holy Cross pretty much represents the surrounding community.
Yes, and that's a very important thing to mention because historically anyway, when there wasn't the ease of transportation, the neighborhood community was the church community. And back then, back at the beginning of our parish, which incidentally celebrates its 100th year next year, back then it was almost exclusively Italian. But since then we've had the influx of Puerto Ricans since the 60s probably. And then there was a large Vietnamese community for a while in the 70s and into the early 80s, but they've kind of moved farther up the west side and even into Riverside. And then came the Africans. When I arrived here 13 years ago, there were no Africans. Within a year or two of my arrival, there were a lot of Africans, and they live near here, so they came here. And they still come, and they're still coming. And even some of those immigrants have moved on. They've pursued their education. It's a very well-educated population that comes, and so they quickly plug into educational opportunities here, and we're very insistent that their children finish high school and study, and many of them go to college. I'm amazed by what they do. And some of those folks have moved out, like some immigrant groups before them. But again, they felt that their anchor on the west side and where they have a lot of their cultural celebrations is here, so they keep coming and they're very much involved.
You mentioned 100 years in existence next year. What do you mean, 2014 or this year?
2014,
2014?
September 14th of 2014. We hope to start on a series of events starting September 14th of this year, or that week of September this year. And we're trying to do something each month. Nothing huge, nothing that we would be unable to do, but some significant things: cultural, religious, social, youth activities, senior activities, some family involvements. Then invite the bishop and former parishioners for a grand finale in September of next year.
Yeah, you mentioned September. September is a very unique month for the Hispanic community because September 15th is the kickoff for Hispanic Heritage Month. And I understand that this year, September 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, it falls on a Sunday, we're going to have a celebration, a mass, in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, officiated by the Bishop of Buffalo, which is going to be a very nice celebration. And now that you said that you're going to begin the activities that are going to lead up to the 100th year anniversary, it's very nice to know that, this will be one of the events that is going to begin that journey of celebration.
And that's next year, you say?
This year,
this year,
2013,
okay.
Yeah, September 22nd. They should have informed you already, Monsignor. The office of, we've been working with the Office of Diversity at the Diocese of Buffalo, Maria Ramos, and she had put it on her calendar, so she'll probably be communicating that to you very shortly. However, the reason why we're here today, Monsignor, is because as you heard in the news and in the newspapers and TV, there's a lot going to be going on the Niagara Street Corridor. The Niagara Street Corridor was just recently designated Hispanic Heritage District. And a lot of economic development, a lot of improvements are going to go on in the corridor. And when we talk about the corridor, we're talking about Niagara Square to Porter Avenue. Obviously, the improvements are going to go beyond, but the area that we're talking about as far as the corridor, it's that area. It's Niagara Square to Porter Avenue. You personally, being the head of a large congregation for so many years here in the heart of the Hispanic community, what do these improvements mean to you personally?
Well, I love a good-looking neighborhood. I would see that as another plus to encourage people to come down and visit and shop and come and reside here. But I really hope that there's some component having to do with housing in that. I know that a thriving business district, business corridor, if you will, brings with it often collateral development in the neighborhoods right around it by private individuals who, well, I see it up along Plymouth Street, I see it along Connecticut, the Elmwood Strip, several areas. I'm glad to see that the old, apparently dilapidated housing around on this side of our side of Kleinhans, between Kleinhans and Niagara, a lot of those houses are coming back to life. There's a lot of dumpsters showing up in front of houses, and I think that's a good sign. But at the same time, I hope that there is interest shown in making sure that the poor are still here. People that can't afford a house or a total renovation job on their current house, that they would be encouraged to stay and not edged out of here. As you know well, I think I saw some statistics once, not long ago, that everything on the west side of Niagara, between here and the river, pretty much everything is rental. Everything is rental, and that explains the condition of the housing around here. Can we do something to keep those residents here? They're my community. They're people that populate our church. It's a business interest for me, in addition to being a spiritual responsibility for me, a pastoral task. But to keep them here and make sure they can stay in their homes or acquire a better home, and find some way to make sure they can stay here. It's a largely immigrant group living around here. There's a lot of people in public housing. I don't know if we still call it public housing anymore. Mariner Towers, Mariner Homes. Well, Lakeview is private public. But a lot of people are recently arrived to this country. And I wouldn't want to see them feel that because they inch up economically, their income goes up, that they get out of the range of any assistance that they're currently receiving and have to move to worse housing farther up the west side where the weakening of the housing stock would follow them along unless they have something to invest in a property. I'd like to have them encouraged to stay here and not have to move up in other areas. Well, I jotted down a couple of things that I would be concerned with. I just mentioned that the business improvement often leads to collateral improvement of housing and by private individuals. Also, this seems to me to involve a lot of new jobs around here. I would like to see these young men and women who have absolutely no work experience. There's no entrance level jobs. Can they be encouraged, not only by voice, but by programs that will get them into the entry level jobs? Maybe unions, maybe the workforce development office. Maybe those things should be looked into, and not only training them to working along with them to develop people capable of taking those jobs, but something that will lead to jobs afterwards. Not just, okay, the project's over, the funding's gone, so goodbye. But get an entry-level job, but no exit-level job. And there's another thing that I've always thought that a church community really depends on its natural constituency is the population that surrounds it. It's very nice. I'm very happy that we have parishioners that have come here for years but have gradually moved up and out. That goes on for not even a generation in most cases. In our case, we've been lucky. People keep coming back for 15, 60 years. We can't expect that's going to keep on happening. But I wish that a stable community could be a reality around the Lower West Side. And it's not just our church. I think it has to do with businesses. I think it has to do with other faith traditions. I think it's very much part of the Catholic tradition to have a geographical parish. Where do you live? Oh, that's your parish. Well, I'm glad we have the freedom to move around if we want, but the real strength of a community is the blocks around where that community worships. There's one other thing. No, I think that was just about it. The importance of a stable community surrounding the church building.
With such a critical attachment that you have to the community, being the pastor of the community, the faith leader of the community, personally, Monsignor David Gallivan, what would you like to see be part of the improvements of that corridor, of this corridor, the Niagara Street Corridor? What would you like to see be part of the agenda that will improve this corridor?
Well, now there you've gone beyond what I was prepared to talk about, but what I'd like to see is there's the Father Bell Center across the street here, and I know there's a lot going on there, but I know there's a lot of young people that are not involved in it's mostly young people in the programs over there. And they've been very dependent on government funding from different levels, mostly federal lately. But those things dry up after a while, and then they disappear. Then you don't see much going on there at all. I'd like to see permanently more involvement of youth, and not just the few centers that there are around here, including our own, but a place where kids can recreate around here. Once you get outside, people send their children here they don't mind them going to the youth center, maybe the Bell Center, but otherwise there's nothing for them in the streets. There's no there's nothing for them in the businesses around here. Would there be some place recreational where they could go besides the few centers that are around?
What do you think about the corridor being in such close proximity to Canada and the Canadian border? Okay, as far as tourists, as far as visitors, as far as people, the influx of people coming possibly from all over the world. Okay, and the Niagara Street Corridor being the welcoming or the recipient location for many of these visitors. What do you think?
Well, right now, if I were driving in for the first time from Canada, I would drive pretty fast along the Niagara Street Corridor. There's a few buildings there that I'm not proud to say are part of my neighborhood, and I don't. A lot of rental properties that are in awful shape, and some abandoned buildings actually. This big gray one across from the Niagara Cafe. I've watched that over the years just go down and down and down without anybody being in it. There's been vandalism occasionally, but I see buildings like that. I envision someone someday doing a walkathon or something from, say, Fort Erie to Niagara Square, and walking down Niagara Street wouldn't be one of the options that I would choose if I didn't know. I walk myself. I walk a half hour a day all over this neighborhood, and I have no qualms at all about it. I don't find it dangerous, but it isn't inviting.
Do you think that a city government, a state government, federal government has done enough to uplift this area, the community?
Well, we have been over the years a forgotten community. I don't say unimportant. Everybody recognizes the importance of a neighborhood like this, or this particular neighborhood. But we're in the corner of, say, the Ellicott district. I think we touch on Delaware, Ellicott, Niagara, and it isn't just the Hispanic community, but you've got the African community also split up into different seats of power. And nobody feels that because there's three places coming together, that there's enough of a power base here to go after it and really produce in a way that you would attract those people, because divide them up, there's only a few hundred people for each of the council persons. And they're nice people. I've known them for years. But I think there has to be a better study, a better distribution of the power structure in the area.
If it was one message that you would give to our local elected officials regarding the Niagara Street Corridor and the future that it may lie ahead for the future generation, what would it be?
Well, think about were you Mr. Councilman or Mr. Legislator or Mr. Assembly person or senator, whatever you might be. Think when you go to a border city, what you would like to see, what would attract you? What would attract you to go to some place and go to lunch there or take a walk along there? What is it that you would like to go and see, that you would stop your car, get out, and walk around and see in the area? Do you see it here on the Lower West Side? What will you do to make it happen?
Thanks very much, Monsignor David Gallivan. This has been a very encouraging, very enlightening interview with you on behalf of the Hispanic Heritage Council of Western New York and my person, Kaz Rodriguez, and all our members, and our city, okay, and our community. We'd like to thank you for this interview. Do you have any final words?
Well, I was hoping you'd give me a chance. I thought of this as we were finishing. In June, a member of several of those committees, the Parade Committee, the Heritage Council, I believe, and any number of other community bodies, will be ordained a deacon of our church, Miguel Santos.
That's great to hear.
And hopefully, I'm knocking on plastic, I think. Oh, here's wood. I'll knock. I'm praying that he would be assigned to us here at Holy Cross. This is where he spent his early years in Buffalo, and where he's been as an adult for the last many years since his college days. But now he's heard the vocation to be a deacon, and that should be in mid-June, and hopefully he will be another committed community leader in this neighborhood.
That's great to hear, Monsignor. And Miguel is a hard worker with National Grid, and he's a committed and dedicated member of our Hispanic Heritage Council. We'll be here for that celebration.
Good.
What are the roles and responsibilities of a deacon?
Well, I don't know how many Catholic viewers you have out there, but with the most obvious ones, the ones that you'll notice he's a deacon at, would be assisting at the liturgies, but sometimes taking on the liturgies himself. Deacons are allowed to preach on Sundays, do marriages, funerals, baptisms, take on some of the administration, but I would not like them to be limited to handing out keys and worrying about keys and money but just dealing with people. Deacon means servant. A servant doesn't sit where I am right now behind the desk. A servant is out there with the people, and Miguel has a history of doing that. You know that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'd like to see him do. And he's, strangely enough, he said, I especially want to work with the Africans. I said, wait a minute now. You're Hispanic. There's a lot of Hispanics here. Oh, yeah. But we were benefited by the parish once, and I want to spread the benefits around.
Well, thank you very much, Monsignor Gallivan, and God continue to bless you with health, prosperity, and good fortune for yourself and your congregants. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.